International Dairy Week presents Around the Barn. Hello, I'm your host, Casey Treloar, and this will be the online space where those in the Australian dairy industry can connect with each other, as well as those right around the world in the lead up to Australia's premier dairy show in January 2022. This will be the one-stop shop where you can catch up with our sponsors, exhibitors and judges to talk all things cows, technology and showing down under. To start off tonight's episode, we're joined by Matt and Nicola Templeton of Beaufort Holsteins and Jerseys. And of course, they're the owners of the reigning International Dairy Week champion, Avonlea Reginald Jacobonia. Welcome to the chat tonight, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Beautiful. Look, to kick off the podcast, guys, look, take us through a bit of history of your background in dairy farming in Australia.
Well, I grew up on a dairy farm in Pakenham. Then on our current farm, Mum and Dad sold the farm at Pakenham in 2003, moved down here. And in between sort of that time, I progressed into sort of a lot of cattle fitting once I left school, and did that for 13 years and then 14 years. And then, moved home onto the farm sort of 5 years ago. And in between that, I worked for a couple of other farms as well. So, that's the sort of general.
Yep. So I'm originally from Queensland. My parents have a dairy farm, Adedale Jerseys and Holsteins on the Sunshine Coast. A pretty proud dairy farming family. I moved down to Victoria. I suppose I grew up on the family farm. I then went to university and have a Bachelor of Agribusiness and Animal Science. I did a little bit of travelling over to the United States, New Zealand and around to some dairy operations, but ultimately moved down in 2017 onto Matt's family farm. And from there we've kind of just grown the business into what it is now.
Incredible. And I guess for both of you guys, showing cows not only in Australia but all over the world has been a massive part of your lives. Can you take us through some of maybe your biggest moments over your showing career in the dairy industry?
I suppose that something that Matt and I both have in common is our family's involvement through generational involvement. I suppose showing has been something that's been passed down from my grandfather to my father, and now like my sister and I both definitely share the passion of showing cattle. But as Matt says, I think there's more. You catch the bug for showing cattle, but it's the people and the friendships and the places these animals take you. It's an amazing journey, and I think we sometimes we might use the cows as a bit of a plug to get us into some of these places. But it's been an amazing journey. Some of the places they have taken us. So very, very lucky.
Guys, I guess moving back to the cows, flashing back to Dairy Week 2020 when that famous cow of yours did take out the top gong. Can you take us through the moment on that Thursday of Dairy Week 2020?
You were leading it.
It's it's definitely not something you expect. There's a lot of factors all the way up until show day. I don't know. I'm not a big believer in luck. I think you make your own luck myself. But you've still got to have things fall your way, everything sort of go right. Well, and I will use the word that week, like we were lucky the weather played into our favour a little bit. It was a beautiful week. It was just like down where we're from. It's not quite as warm as it is in Tatura. And that week was very mild. It rained for a few days. I know sometimes our cows, they do struggle to settle in just into the heat, the extreme heat they can get there during the day. So that was one thing, I think, all week that sort of helped us with the cows we had there. And then I think that it comes down to the cows, their preparation. But she's a no-fuss cow. She doesn't really loves being a cow. And Wednesday onwards, she was just doing everything right. We did a little bit of a pre-bag on a Wednesday morning, and I thought she looked well enough that the pictures we have of her were actually on Wednesday morning, the day before the show. She was just in form, and it all came together in the end.
Well, for you, Matt, I mean, as Nicola said, you were leading her in the ring. Can you flash back to what the moment was like for you feelings-wise?
I didn't think it was going to be easy. She wasn't, I will say she's not the easiest cow I've ever led. You have to be very gentle with her. She's very touchy. Yeah, especially she wasn't made best starter of the show. And that a little bit before in my mind, you got to be thinking, well, you just don't know what the judge is going to do. And that's not always a sign that, you just, I don't know, just gets in your head and you're thinking about it. And there's there's some great cows out there. Like the age cow class, it was an awesome class. And the whole show, the senior show, I thought was an exceptional show. So until you actually get the actual handshake or whatever the judge does, it never really sinks in until then. And even then, when we were lucky enough to win Supreme, see, I say I don't believe in luck, but I keep using it. It's something really until the end. Like that wasn't easy either. Like there was some great cows there of other breeds. So, it's really not until I get home is when it really sinks in for me. Once you stop and it all, you sort of take a break, and that's when it all sort of comes.
For sure. And obviously the cow, Jacobonia, she was a cow that you guys purchased. Can you tell us a little bit about the story about how you came to own her or why you chose to purchase her?
I don't know. Whenever I look at cows, I always look at them and think, well, I wonder what she'll be like in 2 or 3 years or next month. Yeah, so that was Dairy Week 2019. And I was actually the month before Dairy Week, I was diagnosed with cancer. And I actually didn't...
we didn't exhibit Holsteins.
Yeah, we didn't exhibit actually Holsteins. Nicola went up with the jerseys and helped Bush lead. So, I wasn't...
You came up for a couple of days for the show days.
Yeah, so we were supposed to show a team of Holsteins, and I didn't want to go without... Nicola didn't want to take them without me. So, because I actually had, my first chemotherapy the week before the show. Anyway, I came up. It was on the youth show day on the Monday. And in the afternoon, and I went and watched the grand champion of the youth show. And I happened to be walking back through from the judging ring, and I walked past the Avonlea string, and all their cows were standing up, and they had an amazing group of cows. But she was standing there. I think she was second or third from the end, and I don't know. I just saw her, and I didn't ask anyone. I just looked at a sign and I kept walking. And then the next morning, I got up pretty early before they milked her and sort of went and looked at her. And then I came back and told Nicola she needs to go.
Yeah, so Matt comes back and says, you need to go and find the cow up in John's string. And I was like, oh, man, the pressure's on now. So I have to go and find which cow he's talking about. Anyway, we did.
Yeah, and anyway, so at that time, that was when Josh Norton was working for Avonlea, and he was pretty well in charge of their show string. And I sort of asked him sort of a few questions about her, what I wanted to know. And John actually wasn't at the show then. So I rang him, and it was a bit of back and forth. And John, I will say I've dealt with before, and extremely, extremely easy to deal with. But we came to an agreement. That show, actually, we left John's name on her and showed her in both names. Just he'd done all the work to get her there. and just the cow, like I said, she just a dairy quality or udder. I thought she was still, a year or so away. She just wasn't quite enough cow yet, but everyone thought it was all there. I guess the rest is history, as they say.
What makes Dairy Week so special for you guys? I'm sure you've sort of been there from almost the beginning.
You have.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've been going since I think 1996. I remember when the show was under the gum tree that everyone talked about, and then progressed to the Hocker or the big tent, and then into the shed or the show ring they have today, and then the buildings that they've built. So again, it's the place where I've met a lot of people, a lot of friends. A couple of my best friends I've met there. And I don't know, sometimes it's the place we all love to hate it there, especially when it gets that hot. We all say we're not coming back, but we always do. So when we have years like 2020, when the weather is so nice, it just makes it worth it. But then, like I say, we all get used to it once you're there.
And acclimatise.
You acclimatise. Yeah, we've all learned how to make the cows more comfortable now. So really, at the end of the day, if it's that hot outside, the cows are better off being where they are. So, but no, hopefully we get to the show. I know it's just for what we do with registered cattle. I think it's a great promotion, and it's always great to just compare, see where the breed's at. Whether you're Jersey, Holstein, whatever. So, just everyone, fingers crossed that everyone can attend. So.
Absolutely. Well, Matt and Nicola, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been a pleasure having you on our first podcast for Around the Barn, and all the best for when we see each other at Dairy Week in 2022.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Casey.
So we're joined by Vaughn Johnston from Semex Australia, and obviously Semex has massive involvement in International Dairy Week over the years. Vaughn, can you take us through a little bit about Semex and its role at International Dairy Week?
Yeah, thanks, Casey, and thanks for the opportunity to be involved in this short podcast and exciting new changes that the culling marketing team brings to IDW. Semex has been a part of Dairy Week from the beginning, and Jim Conroy, our previous general manager, had a huge passion to support events like IDW, Jim being the Lex Bun recipient the first time, and ever since then we've had huge involvement, either through the Semex Spectacular Sale. We've done daughter tours that have been great events, and up to over 100 people on those at different times. The sale has obviously been a big part of it, but since, in recent years, we're the major sponsor and continue to be a major contributor to the event and look forward to its future.
And what makes International Dairy Week such a vital event for Semex, even though Semex is a global company?
Well, Semex, we see it in Australia as the premier dairy event. It's one of those events where you have a large number of customers coming to the event from all over Australia. It's a launching pad for new technologies, new innovation, and it's a great place to do so. It's also, when you start the new year, it's one of those things where you bounce the ball and you begin that new year, and it's a great way to start the selling season.
Obviously, COVID's put a stop to a lot of the shows around the country, and a lot of us have been very much itching to finally get our cows ready. Just how excited are you, Vaughn, and the guys at Semex to finally be back at Dairy Week in 2022?
I think it's always the people that you love to catch up with, and I was lucky enough earlier in 2021 to go to a few events with a lot of people, and the atmosphere was unbelievable because you got to see all your mates that you grew up with, and go to events like this and share times with people that have the same passion as you do. And I think when we get all back together into one place and see some great cows and talk about the great cows, we'll be able to have a great time.
Of course. And look, for Semex, just how influential has Semex bulls been on the cows that have really succeeded over the years at Dairy Week?
Well, you can talk about some of the great names and household names in Dorman and Goldwyn and those sort of bulls have had huge impact. In recent times, we've seen Solomons and there's cow families that have been pretty good across all breeds. The Fern Leafs in the Jerseys, and then the Jijigos and the Ayrshires. There's cow families in all of them. But for me, I always come back to the Jessicas. We've seen the Solomon Jessica do really well in the intermediate section. We've seen Goldwyn Jessica win, and the great old leader Jessica, who put Australian Holsteins on the map. A phenomenal cow family, and Australia's cows really can compete with the best of them around the world, and certainly the Semex sires have played a huge role in that over the years.
For sure. Well, Vaughn, thank you so much for joining us on our very first podcast and introducing us and taking us a bit behind the scenes with Semex and obviously its role at International Dairy Week. Obviously, events like this can't happen without companies like Semex. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Casey, and look forward to the rest of the new podcasts coming our way.
Fantastic. Well, we're into the final part of the episode for today, and I'm very excited to introduce Jade Sieben from Brindabella Holsteins. Now, Jade has been announced as our judge for the youth show for International Dairy Week in 2022. Jade, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came into being dairy farming in Australia.
I grew up on my grandparents' dairy farm. They managed Rickdale Holsteins at Kenilworth in the Mary Valley, inland from Noosa in Queensland. That's where my love of Holsteins came from. From there, I went share farming through Northern Victoria, the Riverina. Eventually ended up in farm ownership at Trumbury in Northern Victoria, where I now run Brindabella Holsteins. It's about 240 acres, milk 200 cows all year round with a split calving, mainly autumn calving, but a bit in the spring as well. We're a TMR-based herd with a bit of grazing as well. And, I run it with my two kids, Lincoln and Georgia.
Jade, as we announced, you will be the first judge that we're announcing. Can you take us through the moment it was you got the phone call that you were going to be the judge for 2022?
Yeah, well, it was only at the beginning of the week. So, I was really excited. It's always been a dream to judge, as everyone who goes to the judging schools and becomes a judge, you want to judge the best animals in the country. And to be given the opportunity to judge something at Dairy Week's definitely an honour and a privilege. And, I'm just excited to work with the kids. And I think that's, they're the future of our industry. So I do love when I judge shows, doing the handlers and the young judges and helping the kids out. It's really important. We were all kids once and we're all helped out by our mentors. And, it's just nice to be able to give back, I suppose.
Of course. And so, Jade, you're judging the youth show for Dairy Week. For those that aren't familiar with the youth show, can you take us through maybe a little bit of its format and a bit of the success that your family has enjoyed over the years in the youth show at Dairy Week?
Yeah, well, the youth show will basically be split into the juniors and the seniors. And, I think the juniors don't quote me on this, but they're like under 13 or 14. And the seniors are obviously the older kids. And obviously you're going to get a fair difference in their abilities from the younger kids to the older kids. But the quality of cattle will be good at both of the sides of the show. Just having that opportunity. I know I did the youth show many, many years ago, back when it was in the Hucker. I remember Callum McKinven being the judge, and the fact that he took the time to talk to me about my animal and explain to me what was good about her and what was not good about her was something that I took away and I'll always remember. The kids always, I think my kids have always looked forward to Youth Show Day. It's a great way to start the week. We always have shown a decent team, and we've been lucky enough to win the show. Georgia had a really good show last year, winning junior champion, senior champion, and grand champion, and it's always just a highlight to start the week off, and it gets the ball rolling, and it's something we've always enjoyed doing.
Jade, can you take us back through a little bit of maybe some of your judging highlights leading up to now and being announced for a judge at Dairy Week?
Yeah, well, I've been on the panel probably since I was in my early 20s, judged in all states of Australia. Had the privilege of judging Canberra the year they did a year of all-female judges across all beef breeds and all dairy breeds. There is a photo of us all somewhere in the Canberra showgrounds. They lined all the females, all the judges up who were females. It was quite an honour to be chosen to go and do that. Also judged Brisbane Royal, going home and doing your home Royal from what you grew up doing. Brisbane Royal was my highlight. Echo was the highlight of my year when I was a kid, and to be able to go back and judge that and judge some quality cows was just an honour. It was very emotional time. It was in the downturn when we were really struggling, and I actually doubted whether I should do it just because I didn't think I was in the right frame of mind to be judging cows and going up to Queensland when we were doing it so tough down here. But it was a really good release and break, and everyone was so supportive up there. But it was just it was probably one of my highlights, and also judging the state final for New South Wales and the on-farm challenge. And there's something I really enjoy doing, getting out on people's farms and looking just briefly at their operations. You don't get to see a lot of their operation, but seeing great cows in their work clothes and finding those gems that just come out and can win the whole thing.
Jade, a lot of us have been impacted by COVID and borders and restrictions and lockdowns all across the country. Many of us haven't been able to get to shows really for the last 18 months. How exciting is it that we are pushing ahead for the return of Dairy Week in 2022?
Oh yeah, it's we got a little taste of it in Victoria with the Winter Fair, and it was just so good to be back. It was everyone was, no one really cared about the competition, and I think that's what Dairy Week's going to be like next year. Like people obviously will be there to compete, and the competition will be fierce, but people have been missing catching up with their friends and that camaraderie and just being around like-minded people that enjoy doing what you like doing. And I think especially for the Monday, like it's going to be so important for the kids to get back together and do what they love, because no one's been able to do it. And I think it's going to be huge. And I think it's going to be definitely one after having a year's break. I think everyone is just so hungry to get back, not just to compete, but just to rekindle friendships.
Of course. And Jade, going a little bit off topic here, but something that you've become a part of through International Dairy Week is the power of women. Can you take us through a little bit about how that evolved and what it means to have that at Dairy Week?
Yeah, the Power of Women was set up. We thought there was just a bit of a gap in the market. I've grown up respecting all these wonderful women who have done amazing things in our industry, and I didn't want the next generation not to know about them. I didn't want them to get lost and forgotten, and I wanted to celebrate them, and Dairy Week seemed like the perfect place to do it. Ladies like Bet Hall and Lynn Boyd and Pam Malcolm and Jenny Cray and Lisa Broad, like these women have made huge contributions to breeding cows and breeding really good cows. And I just wanted the next generation to hear their story and celebrate them. And hence the dinner came about and the Bet Hall Award. And yeah, it's just turned into a nice fun to celebrate the women who have done a lot of work and have done really well in our industry. And I'm really proud of it. Every year it's a small band of women who put it together, and every year we worry, are we going to get people there? And every year it just gets bigger and bigger. And it's really good, and I'm really proud of where it's come from and where it's gone and where it's going.
Also, with Dairy Week, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but what kind of opportunities in terms of progression in the dairy industry does an event like Dairy Week create for younger generations, but then also for yourself as a woman in the industry?
I think it's just the connections you make. Even I could tell stories about people I've worked for that I've met through showing that have helped me in my journey to become a farm owner. We've share farmed for gardeners. I've worked for Murray Souter at shows. We bought our first farm from an old breeder who actually we'd never met, but he vendor financed us into a farm because he'd followed us and our showing career. And he had stud Holsteins, and he thought, wow, these guys really want to have a crack. I'll vendor finance them into my farm because I'm done. And it's just, people say showing cows, it's what can it do? It can open a lot of doors. Like, if you're a young person wanting to get into this industry, it can definitely open doors for you into farming, into any of those ringside booth jobs that are on the side of the ring. Not everyone wants to milk cows every day of their life, and I get that. That's what I chose to do, but there are definitely lots of other jobs out there with feed companies and AI companies, and that all these people are at Dairy Week, and that's where you make your connections, and that's where you do your networking. And for me as a farmer and a breeder, that's where I talk to other farmers and breeders, and I get ideas, and we're using this heat vet, and we're getting these results, and we've started using this fertilizer, or it's just a whole gamut of things that you can draw out of Dairy Week. It's not just showing cows, and it's definitely it's becoming the meeting place of, it's like World Dairy Expo to the Northern Hemisphere. It's where we gather our information and we make our connections and we make our networks.
Of course. Jade, what are you most looking forward to about Dairy Week in 2022 and the opportunity to stand in the middle of the ring there?
Just the experience. I just want to, I'm nervous already, but it'll definitely be fulfilling a life goal, that's for sure. I think it didn't take me 2 seconds to reply. I was like, yeah, for sure. It'll be a great day, and I'm really looking forward to it. Just the quality of the cows and the heifers at the youth shows just getting better and better every year, and it's become a big day. Like, some of the numbers that we've been getting at the youth show over the last few years are really huge, and I think next year will be no exception. I think the kids will be just dying to get back out there, and whether you stand at the top of the line or at the bottom, I think they'll all just be so happy to be out doing what they love, and and I'll be happy to be out there just judging the cows.
Fantastic. Well, Jade, thank you so much for joining us on our first podcast and for being the first judge that we get to announce for the show for 2022. We're all really looking forward to it, and thank you so much for your time.
No worries. Thanks, Casey.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Around the Barn. We hope you enjoyed hearing from each of our guests. If you like what we're talking about, make sure you hit the share button. That's all we've got time for. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.